You'll notice, those of you in the audience here, that things we discuss 24, 48, 72 hours early, or that I've written in my books and I've shared with you, are talked about soon thereafter. Soon thereafter. Activist judges, separation of powers, things that politicians and talk show hosts and cable news types don't normally dabble in. It's not something they typically understand. This is why I discuss these things with you. We're the point of the spear. This is why I post the things that I post on social media, because it's picked up and it's read. That's why it's important that you are the beacon of lights. You're the beacons. So we can keep pressing ahead with this agenda as we fight the radical left and the ruling class, we the people. Now, I was at Reagan National Airport this morning. Got up ultra early in the morning, my wife and I. She took me to the airport. Everything went very, very smoothly. Kept checking. I didn't trust the airlines. This case, American Airlines. Kept checking. The snow was not a problem. The ice was not a problem. The plane coming in from Boston, American Airlines plane, landed on time, was at our gate. The people working the gate, two very lovely people, I might add, a gentleman and a young lady, they were about to get us into our groups, you know, this group, that group 1 through 4 over here, 5 through 9 over there. And as we were getting in line, all of a sudden on the big screen, canceled. Now, the plane was at the gate. The pilots were in the plane. The crew was in the plane. Canceled. Now, I've had planes canceled before. Never while we're getting ready to get on the plane that's right in front of our two eyes. This is American Airlines at Reagan National. We were headed to Florida. I had some interviews to do. And then, of course, everybody's lining up at customer service looking for a way out. The only flight that my wife could help me find was one that would take us through Orlando, and the damn thing would be 6.5 hours. I said, I'm not doing that. So I went home. And I was supposed to fly out tomorrow morning. But I want the top executives at American Airlines to understand something. Not the worker bees who just do what they're told and do the very best they can. And in this case, these agents were very concerned and upset. I could see it on their face, like, what the hell just happened? They had no idea. It just flashed on the board and they had to execute policy. When you take a plane and you give it to other customers, because that, I'm sure, is what the hell you did, and inconvenience all the other people who've come from God knows where, woke up at some crazy hour in the morning, and they're there at the gate, processed through your system, processed through TSA, and there's nothing wrong with the plane, and there's nothing wrong with the weather, but you make some jackass decision, some jerk in some dark room with a schedule. Nobody knows who it is, or if there's a committee of them, and show that kind of disrespect and inconvenience all those passengers or would-be passengers. It is pathetic. It is outrageous. And I'm talking to you, American Airlines. Normally, I don't do this. But I have never been in a situation where we're literally lining up to get on the plane and cancel pops up on the monitor without any warning whatsoever. It's one thing to do it an hour before so people can hustle and find another flight or contact their family members or whatever. But to do it this way is pathetic. And you can believe I'll be looking for other airlines to travel when I can. Part of the problem is the airport that I fly into in Florida, there's limited service. It's typically JetBlue or American Airlines. And there aren't many flights to where I need to go out of Dulles, which is what the airport that I live closest to. Look, they don't have to rearrange things for me. But when I and 150 or God knows how many other people drag our asses and do exactly what they say and show up at that gate with a functioning airplane, with a functioning pilot and co-pilot, with a functioning crew, everything's functioning, and then all of a sudden that pops up on the screen so they obviously can give that plane to somebody else, you better believe I'm pissed off. And it's not just about me. It's about the other people. And it's not just about them. It's about you, too. Again, it's one thing if you have notice. It's one thing if there's a mechanical issue. It's one thing if you have union rules and they're not showing up. God knows what, 1,000 different things. But that's not what happened here. That's not what happened. Airline industry is a tough industry to run. But don't run it into the ground, for God's sakes. You know, I just thought I'd point that out, Mr. Producer. And the inconvenience isn't just the inconvenience of travel. You go to an airport and then you have to leave the airport or what have you. It's everything that flows from that. I don't know all these other people, what their family situations are, what their home situations are, what their health situations are, what their business situations are. They have doctor's appointments scheduled. They're going to see a special surgeon. Maybe they're going to visit a builder. Maybe they have a sick kid. I don't know. It's all that and more. All that and more. There are legitimate reasons to cancel flights. This isn't one of them. And I'm using this massive megaphone to make it abundantly clear. It's one thing to do what you have to do, which inconveniences passenger. It's another thing to show utter and complete contempt and disrespect and inconvenience your would-be passengers. That's a totally different story. That's a totally different thing. And again, even the agents at the desk were stunned. They were good soldiers. They didn't complain out loud, but they looked at each other. I saw their faces like, what the hell just happened here? They had no notice. They had no idea. One of them grabbed the phone and started to make calls. I could hear her. What's the problem? What's the issue? Nobody told us. Exactly. Nobody told them. Now, I've got a lot to discuss here. I posted something on the internet while I was sitting there expecting to get on the plane, tapping it out with my right forefinger and sending it to Mr. Producer to post. And this is what I wrote early this morning for most of you who follow it anyway. The D.C. ruling class versus we, the people, and our Constitution. I've spent decades talking about and writing about the judicial tyranny of left-wing activist judges and the progressive, that is, Marxist project, starting with the likes of then-Professor Woodrow Wilson. Despite all the lies and static about the conservatives on the present Supreme Court who are actually originalists, doing the job of real jurists, these activists are destroying and intending to destroy the judicial system, using it as a kind of politburo to impose their ideology from the bench. Wilson will be proud. This is what he preached. This is the real constitutional crisis, not POTUS, Musk, and others trying to reestablish separation of powers, representative government, limited central authority, and so forth. The bureaucracy is a fourth branch of government, something I've been writing about and preaching about for decades. That is non-existent in our Constitution. The federal district courts are not found in our Constitution. They're a creation of Congress. Even judicial review can't be found in our Constitution. The case of Marbury versus Madison established it, but that was a case. That's not the Constitution. It's an implied power. Rather than these entities acting with deference and caution, given the fact that they are not in the Constitution, Today, they're bulldozing their way through the Trump administration, substituting their personal views and preferences for those of an elected president, seeking to sabotage his ability to govern. Then they and their surrogates have the temerity to claim Trump is a threat to a constitutional government, as they usurp it and him. The truth is that Trump is a threat to them, the corrupt, power-hungry ruling class, and their unchecked power over politics and culture. No, Trump is a threat to them. Their century of power grabs and abuses of power. They're autocrats, not Democrats. They seek to lord over us, not serve us. And they use our money and the tools of government for self-aggrandizement. They've been able to keep most of it in the shadows until now. Notice how they're desperately defending it, every inch and penny. The fraud and all of it. No one is saying a president has dictatorial powers, except in essence, those who celebrate Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson and Barack Obama and Joe Biden. They're celebrating dictatorships. They're the closest to modern dictators our nation has ever experienced, all Democrats. Trump complies with federal court decisions. Biden defied the Supreme Court several times, not to mention violated immigration laws and other laws with impunity and with the support of his party and their media. Biden and his party have sought to destroy the independence of the Supreme Court and unleashed a campaign of intimidation and a barrage of threats against justices with whom they disagree. In fact, there's much about the Constitution they hate, including the Bill of Rights, Electoral College, its authors. It's a long list. This president complies with federal court decisions even when he disagrees with certain rulings. He appeals them through the legal process. That said, no judge has the power to run the executive branch, especially when it comes to basic executive functions, such as restructuring agencies, personnel matters like severance, temporary holds on spending to conduct reviews, access to agency information to conduct audits, and so forth. These judges have no power to substitute their personal and political preferences for that of a popularly elected president of the United States. And it's not lost on you and me that Democrats, whether public sector union bosses or state attorneys general, are behind this latest lawfare. They're colluding and conspiring. These cases are brought in Democrat strongholds to cherry-pick favorable judges. The entire edifice Trump is challenging is basically owned by the Democrat Party and paid for by you. They've created their own legal system. They've appointed their own judges to protect it all. It has nothing to do with protecting the Constitution and everything with dismantling it. The power of the unelected branches and their media are creations of the early progressives, that is, Marxists, to perpetuate their power and control even when they lose elections. And that's precisely what's taking place. They tried to stop Trump from becoming president, having failed miserably, despite their fascistic legal tactics. They're now trying to sabotage his electoral mandate, all the time waving around the very Constitution that they despise.